footnotes from there. The second group who need to read this book are economists. Now, we economists can be a pretty condescending bunch. We don't much like ideas that come from outside our community. We tend to think either that these are people who disagree with the basic premises of economics and they are therefore wrong, or these are people who do agree with the basic premises of economics and we have therefore got it all covered and our models already take account of the ideas here. And so on Twitter, as Ben has been talking, some of my economics friends have basically been saying, yeah, we know all this stuff. We have nonlinear models. We don't need. What is all this complexity stuff? What does that add to what we already know? The message for economists from this is that this does not disagree with the basic principles of economics, but it adds something to them, and it adds something about the way complex nonlinear systems work, which change the conclusions of the model, change the conclusions of the way we analyze these problems. So this is not a whole new, different, uneconomic way of thinking, but it adds something extremely important to what economists are already talking about. The third group of people who I think should read this book are the anti-economists. There is particularly in development, there is a group of people, some of them I see in this room, who think that there is no problem in development that isn't one way or another the fault of the ideology of economics. All these people who want to measure things, break things down into rigorous impact evaluations, want cost-benefit analysis and value-for-money studies, and who think that's all nonsense. The world is characterized by relationships, by culture, by history, by uncertainty and complexity, and they will think this book is the answer to their problem. That they will be able to wave this book as a trump card and say, you economist, you've been proven wrong, and here's a book by Ben, which I haven't actually read, but I understand it says that the world is complex, and therefore you should go away, right? Now, those people need to read this book because they were wrong before, and they're even more wrong now. What this book does not, this book certainly tells us that it's difficult to predict and plan complex nonlinear systems. But it doesn't tell us that we have to stop measuring. It doesn't tell us that we have to stop thinking about value for money. In fact, quite the opposite. It tells us that we have to do that even more. The solution, as Alison was saying, when you're trying to find a solution to a complex problem, what you're trying to create is an evolutionary system. You're trying to figure out how to make a system evolve better. And there's a catchphrase in complexity thinking, which is probe, sense, respond. Okay, probe, sense, respond. The sense and respond part is the part where you measure the effect you're having and you respond to that, right? You wouldn't take, the human body is a complex adaptive system, okay? You wouldn't take a medicine that nobody had bothered to do a proper, rigorous, randomized controlled trial on to measure whether it works and what the side effects are. Okay, so this increases, it doesn't reduce the need to do rigorous impact evaluation, to do cost-benefit analysis. That's a key part of the evolutionary process. So if you think this is your one-bound and your free solution to the tyranny of economists, I'm afraid you do need to go and read the book. The fourth group of people who should read this book are people who work in development agencies or people who implement projects for development agencies. Because this has very important implications for what they do. If the world is complex, then we face uncertainty rather than risk. And in the face of uncertainty rather than risk, the appropriate response is simple rules, not complex rules. Okay, there's a wonderful speech recently given about a year ago by Andy Haldane, who's the Bank of England guy in charge of financial stability, called The Dog and the Frisbee. And he talks about a frisbee is a classic nonlinear fluid dynamics problem. If you were to try to if you were to ask an economist to predict the flight path of a frisbee, you would find it you wouldn't be able, an economist would have to go and ask their physics friends, and they would find that they probably couldn't do it. And yet most of us seem to be able to catch a frisbee. In fact, dogs can catch a frisbee, right? They're probably not doing nonlinear fluid dynamics